This video is part 2 of how to quickly add charts to visually compare data in Excel, and in this one we're going to talk about how to make some aesthetic changes to the data so that it looks right. So this is the data that we had in the last one. We already created our chart, and now what are we going to do with it? So like for instance, chart title probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense for our data. So instead we're going to say, we're going to double click in here, and we're going to say customer sales to date, and hit enter, and that's going to change that. You can also just click in here and get the cursor to be in there, and you can backspace, type, whatever you want to do. And this may not necessarily be the color that we want because it's very muted. So if you select that data, you can then go in here and you can change things. So I'm just going to click this purple, and I'm going to make it bold and maybe change the font itself. This is easy to do. If you basically just select the data, you will get, oops, I'm moving the data here. If I select the data, I automatically get this little quick change box. You could change the way something was aligned and all kinds of different things. So this is sort of the basic type of changes that you could make. If you want to make more robust changes or a little bit less common changes, then you can right click in here and you can say Format Chart Title. And that's going to give you this menu over here, which has 3 different locations and tabs. So this is kind of like your fill and line, this is effects, and this is size and properties. So I'm only going to really talk about the fill and line. So here I could fill this up if I wanted to, and I could say I want to fill it up with maybe like a light gray. Well, that's not very light, is it? Okay, so let's try over here. There we go. That's a little bit better. If I wanted to add a border, I could do that. I could do a solid line, and then I could pick which color I did. It already used the same purple as my font, so I could leave that, or I mean, you could get crazy. You could make, you could do any colors you wanted to. So I'm going to just leave that the purple, and then you can change how wide that is. You could make that border wider and wider if you wanted to, and as I'm clicking on it, it's getting basically darker and wider up here. So then what else? There's a bunch of different things you can do with that. I could actually make this like a gradient line. You can do all kinds of stuff. And if you did that, then you can pick different colors. There's a lot you can do in here, and you could spend a lot of time on it, and I'm not going to do that. But this is basically how you would get to some of those other settings. This is also effects. So if you wanted to make like a shadow effect, or you want to have soft edges, or make it look 3D, or you can make it glow. Again, some of these you don't want to get too in the weeds in because it will distract from the actual data you're presenting, but just know they're available to you. Okay, so I'm going to close that, and then something else I'm going to do is I'm going to change the number format of these over here. So I don't really feel like I need the .00 for the money, even though this is a dollar value. So I'm going to right click, and I'm going to say Format Axis, and so in number I'm going to select here, and I'm going to say currency, which then gives me this option for decimal places, and I don't want them because I don't love the look of it. So I'm going to say 0 and hit tab, and you can see this automatically changed and it's not there anymore. It's worth noting that you can also change in here what the major and minor units are. So right now I don't have minor units turned on. There's just these major ones. You can also do, I could do like 5,000 in between and it would be smaller. You can also set where the tick marks are. So right here you could say inside, or you can say outside. And these are showing up right here. It's really small. You probably can't see it very well, but you can see that that's what it's doing. Or you can do cross and it goes across the line completely. So that kind of looks good. Then if I wanted to do minor types, I would have to add these in. I don't have minors turned on because I don't think I need it for this, but you could do that if you wanted to. So those are some of the things you could do in here. So for minor, like it would be like 2000, but I don't have that enabled. So another thing you might want to do, you could also come over here and you could change what color these things are, and if you wanted to do a fill with this label. Again, you want to make sure that everything you do is centered on showcasing the data. What are you trying to actually get people to pay attention to? So if I have all kinds of crazy stuff going on here with the title and their shadows and glow and all kinds of stuff and background colors, then maybe people aren't actually paying attention to the data. So you want to try to make sure that the data is the showcase. However, you also want these to be readable. So I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to say font because I want to change this to be a larger size. So first I'm going to change the font to a font that I like, and then I'm going to increase the size. Oops. That's going to take me forever to get to where I want to go. So I'm just going to type in, I'm going to change the color, and I'm going to say okay. And boom, now this changes. Now you'll notice as I was changing that, it didn't actually like modify these over here immediately like the data did in our last video. So some things happen in real time and some things don't. So you just keep that in mind. So now I can, these are more legible. People can see these more easily, and I can move on to my next thing, which is this here. I don't like this color, so I'm going to right click on it. And basically what I did is I just selected and made sure, this is important to notice, that all of these are selected. And it actually is only selecting every other one, if you'll notice. But in reality, I've selected all of them. That's just why it looks like that. I cannot explain, but I can just tell you in this state, I have selected all of these bars represented by my customer sales. So I'm going to right click on one, and then I'm going to say, I do want to do this too, but I'm going to come back to that. First, I'm going to change the fill color. So I'm going to do this bright blue, which doesn't look great, but I just want you to see how this works. And then at the same time, I'm going to click on here again, and I just mentioned adding data labels. I do want to do this. So here's how you add the data labels so that even if somebody's looking at a graph, you can see exactly what the labels stand for. Because like if I'm looking at this over here, I mean, I can guesstimate what it is, but maybe I want to know exactly what it is. So I'm going to say add data labels. Now you'll notice that gets a little bit bulky and overwhelming in places where the data labels are really close. Now in these places here, not so bad, but you can grab these and move them. And you'll see the first time I didn't actually move it, there's a little bit of something to it for sure. So you want to have this plus icon. If you do this icon here, you're going to change the size of that actual box, which is not what you want. So I'm going to Control Z to undo that. And then with the, oops, you can see this is very touchy. So I've grabbed the whole entire chart. That's not what I meant to do. So I gotta make sure I'm grabbing the data label. So here we go. I got a label, and then with the plus sign, I can grab and move. And as you do it, you'll see that it creates a line automatically pointing to that data. So you're always going to know what the data, where the data belongs, because there's a line that gets created to it. So you can move these all around if you wanted to. Again, you don't have to have the data labels on. That's just how you do it if you wanted to do it. And last but not least, you can change the background. So if you don't like this really blank white background in here, you can right click in here and say Format Plot Area, and you can put a fill in this background. So I could, it says automatic, and basically there's just like white back here, but I could put like a really soft light gray. And that's much less soft than I thought it was going to be, which is funny. But this is fine. This is still fine because it looks so light here, but it looks darker here. But it actually makes the blue pop. So in a way, I kind of like it. Now, would I put it with the purple and all this other stuff? No. But the idea is just to show you how this works. So at this point, I would maybe change this Series 1. Change this name here. That would maybe be like the last thing that I would do to this, and then this is something that you could use at this point. So, and you can also see when I clicked on this, I got a format legend box over here. So pretty much anything you click on, if you leave this open, when you click on it, you will get the specific changes you can make to that. And there are a lot over here. There's little tabs of information. So anywhere I click, I'm going to end up getting, so chart area, chart title. You can see format access. So everything I click on, this is why when you're clicking on something and right clicking for menu, you got to make sure you're on the right place you want to do, because it's going to be different. The menus and the options are going to be different. So here's format data series. So those are all the different things that are available to you. And at that rate, that's pretty much the most common things that you are going to want to change with your chart to make it to where it's accessible and viewable for anybody that you're trying to share the data with.